right, thank you so much for staying with us. Time now for our conversation on widows and matters inheritance. Remember, like I said in the beginning, according to the United Nations, we have around 258 million widows in the world. You can imagine how much we have in Kenya, how many rather we have in Kenya. And that's why we're having this conversation tonight with Diana Kamande, who's on my extreme left. She is the founder and executive director, Come Together Widows and Orphans Organization. Thank you so much, Diana, for joining us. And of course, we have Margaret Ngima to my left, who is a widow. She got married in 2022?
2020.
2020. And you shall share your story with us,
Yes,
actually, right? I want to start with you. Take it from there, Margaret.
Thank you so much, Grace. My name is Margaret, born again Christian, a mom of 2 girls and a widow. I got married in 2020. That is when we wedded. Then my husband rested on 5th of April last year after a tragic road accident. Yes, and so far God has been faithful. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And Margaret, our discussion tonight is on matters inheritance here. Yeah. And that's where I want us to go straight into. So I want you to share your story with us in line of that. Ever since your husband passed on last year, 2022, share that journey that you have walked in terms of inheritance.
Oh, thank you.
I see you breathing.
Yes.
Is it a relief? What is it?
It's a painful journey. Especially when you are widowed young. By the time my husband was lasting, I was only 30 years. And I had a small baby. Our daughter was only 4 months old. Then I had to start the painful journey of trying to juggle and know how to raise the children. So I had to start the process. The process starts with getting a death certificate. So I did that very fast. I did it in May, when the wound was still very fresh. Then after getting the death certificate, I went to the succession process now in court. I did that. I thank God mine has been a smooth journey. My in-laws have been very supportive, so I never had any contestment. So I was able to get my grant very fast, and I was able to follow up the benefits. I've been able to get some. I'm still following. Because of course, when you're widowed and you're the beneficiary, we'll need a grant from court for you to be able to access the assets. Yeah, so I've been able to get the grant to access the assets from bank, the car, the finances. So far I'm somewhere. Yes.
All right. But allow me, Margaret, of course, we're not going to mention the name of the company where your husband worked, but in our pre-interview, you did mention that it has not been easy to get to where you are right now. Yeah. It's been a tussle. It's been a battle with the company. Yeah. And if it's okay with you, you could mention the circumstances under which your husband passed on so that our viewers understand the correlation between the two, even as you share that journey, how it's been with the company that your husband worked for.
Thank you so much, Grace. Okay, like I said, my husband died through a tragic road accident. He was in line of duty. So when you die in line of duty, you're entitled to some benefits. So he was entitled to insurance covers, of which now I was supposed to follow up from the company he worked from. And I did that. Thank God my husband was very transparent. So I knew all his documents. I had his employment letter. So I knew what he was entitled to. So I went to the company he worked for to ask for the benefits. It has been an issue because I was not able to get all the details pertaining the benefits. But since I had his employment letter, I knew what I wanted. So it was a back and forth going to get documents. They tell me to bring documents, I bring. They tell me to go and get my in-laws. My in-laws went and they had no issue. And after I got the grant now, they had no option but to give me the benefits. So I've been able to get some benefits, the insurance money, and I'm still following up on some final dues. Yes.
Right. Diana, as Executive Director, Come Together Widows and Orphans organization, I'm curious about what the situation is in the country, you know. She's talking about the hustle, the battle, the journey she's had just to get, you know, what she is entitled to through her husband. And she is happy to have supportive in-laws. But the truth is most widows out there do not have, you know, do not enjoy that, do not have supportive in-laws. Talk to me about the situation in the country.
Okay, thank you so much, Grace. The situation is not good, or it has not been good. But let me say, when I started working with widows, this is my 11th year. It's not been a smooth journey. I wouldn't say it has been a walk in the park. We are somewhere, but not where I thought maybe after 10 years plus we would be. I think because of our society is patriarchal. You know, our society believes that women do not have to inherit. You find in some communities, like a woman doesn't even have a right to go and sell a cow. It's only the son, even after the death of the husband, it's only the son who can go and do that on behalf of the woman. So you can imagine that that widow in that community, what does she go through when it comes to matters inheritance? One of the biggest thorns in the flesh of widows is succession. The law of succession, I keep saying it's a law that was purely made for women. And I have so many reasons that I can give to prove that this law was purely tailor-made. Sorry, it was purely tailor-made for women. For so long, I've not seen a man, apart from maybe after the death of the former Bomet governor, Dr. Joyce Laboso, may her soul rest in peace, is when I saw Mr. Edwin going to court. It's taken me long to see another man go to court to try and succeed the late wife. But immediately a husband dies, a widow has to go through the tedious court process. Succession Act is the law of succession and the succession process. They are the very most tedious, and I can say it's a very tiring process for the women of this country. I have not seen any single woman, thank God for Margaret, because her in-laws were very cooperative. But you can imagine those widows, like 95% of the widows in this country, their in-laws are not cooperative. I had a widow, unfortunately she passed on. She has been in court for 36 years. Yet she passed on and she left the sons and daughters in court. So this is what we are talking about. We thank our government. We have seen quite a number of amendments on the Succession Act. We have seen also improvement on the Land Act. Right now we can see women are owning land, women have got title deeds, but how many of the widows, as much as we are talking as women, women are owning land, how many among these women, what percentage is the widows?
Sure.
Where we stand, Kenya has slightly above 4-point-something million widows. This is a number you cannot ignore. It's a number that is a game changer in this country, yet we don't have enough laws. It's when we are trying to push the Ministry of Public Service and Gender, which has been very supportive through the PS and the CS, to see whether we can have a standalone policy to protect the widows of this country. It has been a journey. I know it's a voice we've tried to raise. Ministers come, ministers go. The request is still on the desk, and we are hoping with this government that we are going to have a standalone policy that will inform legislation of widows in this country.
Right.
We have been able to speak and to raise our voices even on the international tables. Recently, last year, March, during the Commission Status for Women in New York, we were able to pass a resolution of widows, a resolution that was passed at the UN level. But has it been domesticated in Kenya? We are going to the second year. We have not even had a single clause of the resolution domesticated in this country. So
who is not doing their job?
It's a long journey. the government is doing its job. I won't fault the government, not because I work closely with the government, but because I've raised my voice. One thing I've realized is that policy is not a one-night thing. It is a process. So I would say all of us, it's a collective responsibility. And I also thank the media so much, because also media has brought this issue of widows and the suffering they're going through together with their children to the limelight.
Sure.
So I believe it's time now we do the job. We have a resolution that we can refer to that was passed in New York.
Yeah.
We have a policy that we have drafted in our own capacity as an organization. Now we are waiting to see what the government will come up with, and we are waiting to see if the cabinet is going to pass it so that it can go to the parliament as a government bill.
Sure. All right. Margaret, I want us to remain on that beat of court, it being a court process. And I want you to tell us what that experience was like for you. You know, was it exhausting? Your time, financially, how was it for you?
Okay, I think court process is not a very easy process.
Right.
Because of course you'll need legal advice. You'll need an advocate when you are filing the petition, and if there is contestment, now it becomes very hard. Like Dana has said, there is a widow who died and had stayed in court for 36 years. That is the challenge that many widows go through, because you find that the biggest thorn in the flesh is the in-laws. When you go to court and the in-laws object, everybody has a right to be heard. So when they go to court and there is the objection, the process delays. Like mine, there was no objection, but I stayed for close to 1 year. When you go to court, if you're not using the legal team, you can do self-representation. Like my case, I tried using the advocates. It was frustrating. It was wasting a lot of time. So I shifted now to self-representation. So now I had to represent myself in court.
Right.
That one was a bit fast, but still it took some time, because before you go through mention, hearing, and conclusion, it takes time, especially here in Nairobi. There are so many cases in Milimani. So if there is a small issue, you can be given a date of like 2 months from that date. So you find that it takes a lot of time. So it is very overwhelming. Like I remember I used to go to Milimani and I would go there. I would sit on the benches and cry sometimes, because I don't know even when I'm going to finish this process. And imagine, mine was very smooth. There was no contestment. I had a very good brother-in-law who would accompany me to Milimani, and still it took time.
Yes.
So imagine to those widows who have contestment,
Sure.
it takes a lot of time.
That's true. That's true. All right. Now, I know judiciary, you know, from the previous CJ Maraga and now with Kome, they're working on fast-tracking these court cases. But Diana, the United Nations says weaknesses in judicial systems of many states compromise these rights for widows and how they are defended in practice and how they should be addressed. What are your thoughts on this? Do we have, if perhaps the judicial system would do its work better, would fast-track these cases, would it be easier for women, for these women, women like the one you're mentioning who passed on after 36 years in court?
Yeah, it would be very easy if judiciary cooperated and also fast-tracked the cases and they just become fair. You see, the problem that I've had with some judges and some lawyers is that you find there are cases that where you find even bribes are being taken. Yet we have a very vulnerable woman here who deserves to inherit from their spouse. You know, as women, sometimes you might not be working. You're, as we say, a housewife. But I always say there is nobody who is our housewife, because you got married as a woman, you gave birth, you have been preparing this man to go to work in the morning, you breastfed the babies, you took care of the babies to go to school. That is work in itself. Yeah. Actually, it's the woman who does a lot of work. Sometimes even this man comes back in the evening and throws the socks by the door as he enters. So you have to start by collecting the socks, put them into wherever you're supposed to put them, clean them. All the work is done by the woman. But by the end of the day, when this woman loses her spouse, stories start. And this is where I blame our society. We judge women so harshly that she was not working, she was not doing this, yet she is the person who even carried those children in her own womb for nine good months.
Yes.
Took care of them. Sometimes you find if the woman was in school, this woman stops schooling, she has to take care of the children, and by the time this woman is going back to school, if together with my husband we were pursuing bachelors, I'll never get that man academically because he has already pursued bachelors, he's already done with masters, he's going to PhD. Yet this woman, the moment this husband sleeps forever, then we start saying that this woman has no right to inherit, this woman has no right to anything. To an extent, sometimes I ask some of these in-laws, do you mean even the cooking stick in that house was bought by the man, surely? You know, there are some questions, and I keep on telling men, it's important to be very open to your wife, very open, because that really helped Maggie, because she knew even where the letters were, she knew what the husband was entitled to. But what we are seeing, and which has now made us to introduce another program in our organization. Right now we are doing paralegal training for widows. We have been able to graduate 6 cohorts this year, since January. Why are we doing this? We are doing this because of self-representation. We've seen Maggie self-represent herself. Just before Maggie, there was Doreen Kajuju who represented herself. She won, and we came to realize, wait a minute, the widows are going to court. Sometimes you find even they are being overcharged for these cases, yet they can do self-representation. So we are really empowering them to ensure that they can go and do self-representation, and when they come out with that knowledge, they still come and share with the new widows, because widowhood is a journey that has no end. Every day we got new widows, every hour we have got new widows.
Margaret, we have very few minutes left, about 4 minutes. I want to talk about what I asked, you know, before we started, when we were starting the show, and I was talking about the interventions that are being made to ensure that widows actually know their rights. So I want you to talk to us about how these women can be empowered to know their rights as women.
I think, like Dana has said, paralegal training is one which it's very important. At least these widows will get to know how they can go about the court process. Also, was there some form of training for you? No. There was no training, but I consulted Diana, and she gave me some advice. I also consulted another lady. She has mentioned Doreen, who did self-representation. Also, there are so many platforms you can be able to get these ideas. Like now, I was in a group in WhatsApp. I was able to share my story, and widows came up and they gave me advices. So I think the best thing would be just sensitizing people. The men, they need to be very open with their wives. Let their wives know what they're entitled to. Let them know what they owe. If you owe a plot somewhere, make it very open to your wife. That makes it very easy that even in their absence, the wives can be able to follow up and even inherit.
All right. Diana, in a minute, please, let's talk about the importance of a will, especially, you know, by both men and women. How important is it?
A will is very important. From me as a wife, from my husband as a man, because it is going to help, or rather, it will make sure that the process is very smooth. Though I know there are still those in-laws who will still contest, even when there is a will, they go and contest against the will. But the will helps to make the process very smooth, and even the judgment is so clear. When the judge doesn't have a very hard time, because he has something to refer to. And when the wills are there, I would love to talk to the in-laws. Please don't go contest against these wills. They have to work hard. I keep saying it's the greedy and the lazy in-laws who will keep on contesting against the wills and trying to fight the widows so that they cannot inherit. And they forget that the children and the children they are fighting, they are their own blood.
Right.
These children belong to their brother.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so my director Nick is in my ear
Yes,
telling me we
yeah.
need to wrap up. In a minute, please, 30 seconds each. Let me get your closing remarks, please. Margaret, starting with you.
Okay, my closing remark would be a voice for the widows. I would first want to talk to the in-laws. Everybody will become a widow or a widower at some point if you're married. So I would urge the in-laws, let us be very kind to these people, whether it's a widower or a widow. Let us be very kind to them, because by so doing, it makes the journey bearable. Like mine has been very bearable because I've had very supportive in-laws. My father-in-law have been very supportive, my brother-in-law have been very supportive, and it has made the journey bearable.
Right.
So let us be kind to these widows and widowers.
Right, Diana, in 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, I would summarize the words of Maggie and say widowhood is not a career, widowhood is not a choice, and each and every one of us is a potential widow or widower at one time or the other in life. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Diana Kamande, founder and executive director, Come Together Widows and Orphans Organization, and of course, Margaret Ngima, who is a widow. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us tonight, for your time and your contribution. And thank you too for watching. Thank you for your feedback. I see it. I cannot sample it tonight. I'm sorry for that. We don't have the time to do it, but I appreciate you viewing. My name is Grace Korea Kanja. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.